sick and tired of your love-hate relationship with wine?
Welcome to the Feel It Alcohol-Free podcast. Hi, I'm Coach Ruby Williams.
And I'm Coach Susan Larkin.
We're two former wine lovers turned alcohol freedom coaches, exposing the lies about alcohol.
And giving you, our listeners, the tools to break free so you can feel lit.
And when you're lit, you'll feel healthier, freer, and more in control of your life.
So relax, kick back, and get ready to feel lit alcohol-free.
And don't forget, grab a copy of our wine-free weekend guide after the show. Welcome. This is part two. I'm so excited. We did part one last week, and we decided to break it into two pieces. So if you haven't heard last week's episode, please go there first and then come here. So what we're doing is we're answering the question, what were the alcohol-free stages like for you, Coach Susan and Coach Ruby? And can you provide a timeline so I know what to expect? And I'll just give you a real quick synopsis of what we talked about last week, just to get you on track since this might have been a week. We went into the first month and what it's like and how you might be in cycles of drinking and alcohol-free days for quite a while. And then we went into, months 2 or 60 days to 90 days and looking at what's going on there. And we also provided some cool tools and tactics for each of these kind of stages. And we all want to let you know that these were our stages, these were our experiences, and you might be experiencing something different. We briefly touched on feeling better, but also feeling maybe crappy too, like that happens. And then moving through different milestones and figuring out who you really are on this journey. And we also talked about getting curious and aware. And so those are kind of the things we'll talk about probably in almost every episode, and just really digging into what you were using alcohol for, changing your beliefs. There's a lot of work that needs to happen for your body and brain and emotions to recalibrate, to heal. So a lot happens in the first 6 months, really. And then we ended with, maybe you're looking at the next big domino, which means what's next for you? If you start to feel like you have alcohol under, somewhat under control, and you're like wondering, well, what's next? So this is my perfect segue to go into what's next. So let's talk about, say, 6 months to 11 months, So let's call that as maybe the next stage. And you're starting to really, I say, feel grateful. I want to talk about gratitude, and that's going to be my tactic. It was such an important tactic for me for feeling more happy, is you start to feel more gratitude for the little simple things. Maybe you're more present. You notice that sunset, or you notice that you're waking up and the sunrise, right? Sunrise and sunset. Those were two things that when I was drinking, I was usually drinking by sunset, so I didn't experience the full thing. And then I was hungover or brain fog and hitting snooze, right? in the mornings. So just the little things, we talk a lot savoring. I think you brought up, Susan, and things like really getting into our senses. I think this is an important time where you notice the little things, but you also know life is still lifey. We call it lifey. Life is always going to be lifey, no matter if you're alcohol free or whatever. Things happen, stressful things happen. Things are going to show up in your life, and you can call them firsts, right? We FFTs, we mentioned that last episode, but this is the time where you're honing in. I love that word, honing in your skills. How do you move through as a sober person, as an alcohol-free person? So you want to chime in now?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think, honing in what's the next domino. It also may be a time when you grieve alcohol over again, because, if you haven't had any holidays yet in the first 6 months, you're definitely going to have them. If you're going through a whole year, you're going to start. So maybe, you start to think, I think this was at the point I was Yeah, this was the point where it was about 9 months when I went to New York and went out to dinner with my daughter and sort of saw all the twinkle lights and all the glowing wine glasses. And it was sort of like this, oh, that. And if you were a big romanticizer, like that was sort of the last area where I was really holding on to alcohol, was like for special events and special dinners. But that's also where I'm so grateful I had this thought in that moment, because I was starting to feel a little like it's something I can't do, and this is so fun and look, it's all romantic, et cetera. And I just had that thought. And I think I've said this on the podcast before, where it was like, oh, I can look at this and say it's beautiful, but also say that this isn't for me, because just like you could smell, a vegetarian could smell a hamburger and say, oh, that smells really good, but I don't eat meat. And you have a reason and you have convictions for the reason why you don't eat meat. Same for me. Like I can say, oh, all the wine glasses and the beautiful, tables and the twinkle lights all look so romantic and beautiful, but I don't drink alcohol. Like I could still have, and the mocktails out there are getting so much better. You can have a super fancy drink in a super fancy glass. That's all I really want. I want a fancy drink in a fancy glass. It doesn't have to have any ethanol in it. And so that kind of mindset shift really helped me over the hump of grieving that aspect of alcohol.
Yeah. And we did talk about this in episode 17 around the fading effect bias and romanticizing, and that it might come up again. I think I mentioned in that episode, it's like a pregnant woman, right? Where after you have your baby, you're like, that was so painful. But then you start to just forget, right? So fading effect bias happens usually in this time period too. And you may be grieving alcohol, and I love, this is where, when I'm working with clients, where I would definitely suggest doing a goodbye letter to alcohol. In my letter, I goodbye wine, almost like a breakup with a boyfriend kind of situation, or a girlfriend, like that. Like, there were good times in my 20s and 30s, and it didn't go so well. You ended up being the boyfriend that I wanted to kick. You were harmful. You were harming me. So a goodbye letter can be a really good tool, right? Yeah. So
yes, I love that. Like now it's really time. You may have said goodbye before, but now it's like really goodbye.
Yeah, a letter can make it like closure. You can get closure around this time too, where you start to really live into your alcohol-free lifestyle. And that sometimes writing letters, like a letter to your body, like thank you body for everything, and that can help with the healing and give you closure for your regrets around alcohol. Maybe there's so many different tools and tactics that we use, huh, Susan, with our clients.
Yes,
that really move them.
Yeah, move you forward.
Yeah.
That's what's all about.
Move you forward
towards your goals.
Let's move into, I'm going to call this the home stretch hustle. So I think for me, I like to say my alcohol-free journey, well, it's forever work. But the first year is so important. And that first year where you're really committed, you're really doing this, whether or not you have data points, that's not what I'm talking about here. But that first year where you really are making an effort to prepare for every single FFT, like every single first for the whole year. I keep repeating this to my client, like for the whole year, because you want to really...
You need a plan.
You need a plan and prepare and play it forward. But you start to get excited, I think, for the 1 year milestone. I really do. You're like, oh, I can do this. Yeah. I've done 11 months. I've done 10 months. I've done 9 months. You've done it all. And it's really exciting. You can really celebrate. I'm going to put my pom-poms up again for the 1 year. And you do start to feel calm. I would say calm and free and healed. It's like, and mental clarity and freedom from the mental clarity. There's a lot that happens. And again, you've had a whole year of FFTs, of like, all of that, all those experiences, not drinking. And it's not awkward anymore. Maybe a little bit awkward at certain social things, like you were mentioning, but you have more confidence. You've done it once, you can do it again. So your confidence is higher. Yeah. I just remember a little short story is that for the first, before that year, maybe the first 10 months, I was telling people that I'm not drinking because I'm on a keto diet. This is just one story I want to say. And so I wasn't, well, that's okay though. I didn't want to share my wounds. Just, you only want to share a little bit, what you feel comfortable sharing. But at about like 11 months, 12 months was when I really started to share with everyone, family and friends. And it felt good to be vulnerable and be authentic. And I had the confidence that I think I was a little worried for a while that if I tell people I'm alcohol free and then I end up drinking again, but I felt confident at a year, this is my lifestyle. I owned it. And I know some people have a problem with the word forever, and I get it. I really get it. It feels like a lot and your brain might freeze up with, no, that word forever. I actually have the opposite, Susan. I feel comforted by the word forever. It feels like a warm blanket around me. Like you get to do this forever now. Because I love it, right? I love being alcohol free. So you start to I don't know, own it, I guess, own your identity as you were mentioning. So
yeah. But you're also you're not saying, you're embracing the positives of forever. I get to do this forever, which is different than I can't do this forever. That's a totally different thing.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes. I see it as
totally
I'm so lucky to have the opportunity to live an alcohol-free life. I feel so lucky. I got this opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah. We are the luckiest. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you start to move into that. My 1 year story, I felt great at 1 year, and life still is lifey. And as you move through life, you will continue to have circumstances that will challenge, especially if you use alcohol as a coping mechanism. And this is where I was 1 year alcohol free and we went to Mexico, and that's where they canceled our flight. And then I couldn't get anybody on the phone to get on to book another flight. And I started to I was in fight or flight. I was completely, when you say blown, I was blown. My thinking brain was offline. I was in total survival mode for whatever reason. And I did not drink, but I came pretty close. So I just bring that up because, you're not home free at a year for, again, urges. We talked about this the last episode and like you said, planning for the FFTs. So maybe a vacation is, within the first year, or, just maybe you haven't been to a funeral yet. The FFTs go on even into the second year, even into,
even into the third year, fourth year.
Into the third year, alcohol-free living isn't a magic bullet. Life is still lifey. Things will still happen to you, and you now hopefully have the tools to be able to deal with them in a much more positive way and not use alcohol as a coping mechanism. That does not mean that it's not going to come up as a thought, as, oh, remember that tool, this, and it's just a thought. So, people are like, when is this going to end? Is this going to end? When am I going to stop having these thoughts? Is it 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 1 year? It's well, I don't know. That's, probably thoughts are thoughts, but you don't need to act on them and we don't need to believe them. Right. So just learning how to manage your mind, I would say that's probably the most important thing to do in the last 6 months. The next domino is to really start to learn about your thoughts and how to manage your mind. That will give you the tools. I say, once you can do that, you feel like you can go anywhere and do anything alcohol free because you know that you have that skill. Yeah. So
important. I'm glad you brought that up. Maybe we'll do this as another episode, but for me, the getting a handle on my automatic negative thoughts was a game changer.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
yes, and we do this a lot with our clients, right? It's you see your thoughts as a sentence, and you maybe even write them down, and then you start to change them or turn them around, reframe them. We use all these different words, but challenge the thought, right? I was a labeler. Yeah. So I would have the thoughts like, I'm ugly, I'm stupid, I'm fat. I was a labeler since probably junior high. But when you slow it down and go, wait a minute, you have to become aware of the thought first. But this is a game changer. You could become aware of it first, and then you can start to ask, is it true? And turn it around. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. I'm so glad you brought that up, because I forgot about that for 6 months. I think I was just really focused on thought work and feelings and thoughts. Yeah. We'll keep talking about it again and again.
Yeah. I would say that that's mostly what I work on with my clients. The first 30 to 60 days is all about tools, about getting alcohol free and your lifestyle. And then all the rest is about, and I weave it in the beginning of my coaching too, is just learning about your thoughts and your feelings. And it's really about building those skills, to building the awareness about the emotional and thought mastery in order to create the life you want to wake up to. And it was really interesting, because I was talking to a client, they're like, I don't want to remake my life. And I started to think, and I'm like, my life isn't any different than it was when I was drinking. It's super different up here in my brain. I'm pointing to my brain, and in my heart, and in my soul, and in my body. But the circumstances of my life have not changed at all. I still live in the same house, same husband, same kids, same job. Everything's the same. I didn't remake my life. I remade my life from the inside out.
I love that. It's an inside job. Yeah.
It's an inside job. Yes. I always say, like, if you can get this, I'm making a circle between your brain and your heart. If you get this fixed, and then the drinking fixes itself, so to speak. But and then after a year, you're on your way to 2 years. It's really sort of your AF, whoop, whoop, and
alcohol free as F. Okay, bad word.
Yeah, bad word.
No, I have a t-shirt, AFA. I love that. I feel like a badass, right? We talk about badass.
You do.
This is when you start to feel like a badass. Really, you're here, and then all of a sudden, instead of like every month, I'm 30 days, 60 days, 90. You're like, oh, wait, is it 1 year? Is it 2 years? Is it 3 years? You start to go, hey.
I know. It's so exciting. Yeah. Every now and then I would say, Siri, how many days has it been since June 1st, 2020? And then she would say those days. And I'm like, ooh.
Wow.
And if it was a really cool, like, round number, then I would text one of my old buddies that also is still alcohol free, and go, guess how many days we have, just for fun. But it is an amazing accomplishment, because we are still going counterculture, even though there's a huge movement, sober curious and alcohol free movement, and so many people embracing the alcohol free lifestyle. It seems like, because I'm in that world, but the minute you step out, like, I'll go visit my family, and then, or be more around, people who still drink and stuff, and they're always like, you're still not drinking, or wow, it's been 2 years, 3 years, almost 4 years. Wow, that's amazing. They're always so amazed, and so then, really is still a pretty amazing thing to choose not to drink in our society. Yeah. So
I want to talk about real quick. I want to talk about just kind of wrapping this up, like the whole journey, and in a story about like driving a car. So when you first learn to drive a car, right, you have to really pay attention a lot, and you're learning, you're making mistakes, you're really like putting a lot of energy, thought work into driving a car. But eventually, right, it gets easier and easier and easier and easier. And then when we're at this 2 year stage, it's where you're just driving a car, right? You don't have to think about it. You know what to do. You've had lots of different close calls, and different things have happened. And life gets lifey, though. You might have a fender bender. Something might come up. but you know how to handle it, right? You don't have to go to an old coping tool. So, yeah.
Love that. I love that analogy. And also you can drive and eat and drive and put your makeup on and
Right.
drive, you know what I mean? Like you're Susan,
Are you driving
and Susan's driving.
Yeah.
You don't drive and eat?
So this is the time that we segue into our question. So Susan,
yay.
what are you doing to feel lit, alcohol free?
Ooh, okay. So I recently started, it's called sitting in stillness, or I would say walking in stillness. So I walk, I have a 2 mile loop, and I go on the 2 mile loop walk, and I don't listen to music or a podcast. I don't bring my phone. It's just me. And I'm just in stillness and just in my brain and just and connecting with nature. We talked about that the last episode, but there is this practice of just looking up or gazing at the trees. And we have a lot of trees in my area. And so I just gaze up at the branches. It's actually a scientific way to help regulate your nervous system. And it's called refracting, because the fractal patterns that the branches and the twigs and the sky create, when your vision like connects with that and sees those patterns, it's actually calming to your nervous system. It's actually a stress reduction method. Yeah, isn't that cool?
I did not know this. I'm learning from you.
Yeah. So I don't know if I explained it right, but so it's just a physiological resonance that occurs when you see these patterns in nature. And I just think that's so cool that God like made us. And same with, getting your toes in the ground and grass and stuff, is that like by reconnecting with nature, we replenish our nervous systems.
Yes.
And we think about how much time we spend sitting in chairs, sitting in office buildings with artificial light, with rubber shoes on our feet, like you said, last episode, and getting back to nature as a way to regulate your nervous system. So I've been doing that because usually I'm a multitasker maniac, and I'm like, I'm going to walk, get my exercise, I'm going to listen to a podcast and write 5 lists, during my 2-mile walk. And it's almost seems indulgent to go, okay, I'm not going to do anything else except walk and look at the trees and just breathe and just be calm. And I do feel much calmer and much more grounded after that experience. And so you can also do it just sitting in stillness, like in the backyard, but instead of even just like closing your eyes, just by looking up at the trees and sort of feeling the wind on your face, just sitting in stillness for a moment. Can also, if you can't go for a walk and look at the trees, just taking 5 minutes to sit in stillness and just gaze up at nature, at the trees.
I love this. And I didn't realize I was doing it. I have a porch now, or a deck. And if I have like 5 minutes between coaching calls or something, I'll run out to my deck and look at the trees. I do keep my eyes open, and it's gorgeous just to look at the trees and get calm, have no other sounds. Maybe I hear the birds and the wind. Beautiful. Love it, Susan.
Awesome. That's so great. Oh, that's wonderful. Of course you already do it. You're like Mother Earth.
Well, this has been such a fun episode. This was a 2-parter. We haven't done a 2-parter yet, so this is fun. We might do it again.
It's our first, our FFT.
I know. Our FFT first 2-parter. So yeah, please join our Facebook community. We'd love to see you there. Ask us questions. And again, we have a new YouTube channel, and we're trying to, if you want to see our faces and not just hear, you can go there. All right. Thank you again for listening. We love our listeners. Okay.
Yes, we do. Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to Feel Lit Alcohol Free Podcast. Do you have a question you'd like us to answer on the show?
All you need to do is head over to Apple Podcasts and do 2 simple things. Leave a rating and review telling us what you think of the show. And in that review, ask us any questions you have about breaking free from wine or living an alcohol-free lifestyle.
That's it. Then tune in to hear your question answered live. Don't forget to grab your copy of A Wine-Free Weekend at www.feelitpodcasts.com.
And remember, do something today that will help you feel lit.
See you next time.